Youngblood crossover. It's just boring. Just boring. So yeah. Second, what is your X-Men dream lineup? I kind of already answered that with the 5-man team, but add Jubilee or Kitty Pryde on the team as well. Third, what is your view on X-23 being the new Wolverine and her series, the all-new Wolverine, being written by Tom Taylor? I think it's a cool idea. I think if anyone was to be the next Wolverine, it should be her title. So, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Anyway, so moving on now to Jason Voorhees 2011, who asks, could you see Apocalypse as an enemy from the Crystal Gems past while on Earth? Yeah, I could see it. I mean, from what it sounds like, the Gems have been around since only the time of, the Crusades and whatnot. At least that's what I'm gathering here. And Apocalypse has been around since the time of the Egyptians. And according to what scientists are saying now, the pyramids were built when there were still woolly mammoths being around. So yeah, they probably may have crossed paths, but En-Sabah Nur may have been here a lot longer than we had imagined. So yeah, I think that they would be enemies. Man, Rose and Apocalypse throwing down, that'd have been awesome. Second, what are your top 5 X-Men stories from I already answered this one, kind of. Well, I wouldn't have a top 5. I don't, because I can't number them because they're all good. Dark Phoenix Saga, Mutant Massacre, Deadly Genesis. I can't think of all 5 already. Third question: what would you like to see the X-Men films do after X-Men Apocalypse? I want to see them do Mutant Massacre. I want to see them have Mr. Sinister and the Marauders as the main villains, and have them do the Mutant Massacre storyline. If not, something to do with Savage Land and have Sauron be the villain. Anyway. So thank you for those questions, Jason Voorhees. Moving on now to The Great Sudden Trend Kill 85. Hi, James. First question: how do you feel now about Wanda and Pietro no longer being Magneto's kids? It pisses me off, and it seems really spiteful. It just seems, again, really spiteful to, all that continuity and whatnot. Oh, God, it just seems spiteful to Fox in general. It's very mean-spirited. Anyway, second question. If you've read Whedon's astonishing run, what did you think of it? It's frickin' awesome. What more can I say about it? So anyway, thank you for those questions, James. Moving on now to Linerman0245, who asks, what would the X-Men think of the Nightbreed or the enhanced humans from Heroes? They'd be thinking, you guys want to join us? Alright, second question. How would you feel if Ed, Edd and Eddy joined the X-Men? Oh, they'd be kicked out in about a day. These guys couldn't even join a cadet group. So what makes you think they can be X-Men? Alright. What if Cyclops was roommates with Patrick Star for an entire year? That wouldn't happen because Psych would just optic blast him after 2 hours. Alright. Thank you for those questions, Linerman. Moving on now to Overnerd03, who asks, do you think X-Men 92 will last? I hope. I really do hope that it would last. I really am backing that this series does last. I mean, when I first heard about it for Secret Wars, I was like, oh, this is so freaking cool. And then I heard it's getting an ongoing, I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's kind of what DC's doing with Batman 66 and Wonder Woman 77. So maybe they just followed suit with that, and hopefully it will last. So, yeah. Alright. Second question. With Old Man Logan and the X-Men in the all-new, all-different Marvel Universe, do you think he would get into a relationship again with a certain X-Men like Jean Grey? Probably not. He's just a little too old. Like, very old. Third question. Do you agree with the all-new, all-different X-Men, the all-new, all-different Marvel, the young X-Men from the past shouldn't be around around with their older selves, and one of them has to go? I'm just kind of like, man, they just want to keep the original 5 X-Men here, don't they? They're really pushing for that. Anyway, I don't know. It just seemed kind of confusing, and the repercussions of what's going on hasn't really been shown yet. Whatever. Anyway, so thank you for those questions over Nerd03. Moving on now to Hikalos, who asks, should Wolverine be replaced by Tom Hardy? Again, I already answered that. I think it's a good idea. Should Wolverine be replaced by X-23 or Daken in the movie? Now that's an interesting question that people have sometimes thought about. Rather than recast Wolverine after Hugh Jackman left, could they just go with X-23 or Daken? I think it's a possibility because, again, Hugh Jackman is such an iconic character with that role, it would be kind of hard to replace him. But, yeah, it could be like, hey, Fox could be like, hey, let's just kill Wolverine off altogether and replace him with X-23, or maybe have Daken be the new Wolverine. Who knows? So, could be it's a possibility, but I don't think, because obviously Wolverine's such the most popular X-Man, so who knows? Maybe they'll recast him, maybe they won't. Who knows? Third question: with all the production issues with Gambit, will Gambit still be good? I hope. I can only hope. Anyway. Moving on now to John Kelly. Thank you for those questions, Hikalos. Moving on now to John Kelly, who asks, Old Man Logan meets his 80s cartoon self. Thoughts? He would just look at it and be like, here's how it would go from Kitty Pryde of the, Pride of the X-Men Wolverine. Hi, you doll. Fruit. Get the fuck away from me. End scene. F, Marry, Kill, Gay Edition, Wolverine, Beast, Iceman. Kill Wolverine. Beast looks like a cuddler, so marry him, and F Iceman. That's a interesting way to look at it, but Hank looked like such a cuddler, doesn't he? Anyway. Third question: would Ben 10 without Alien X be able to hold his own against the X-Men? Not all of them. I don't think so maybe not. So thank you for those questions, John Kelly. Moving on now to the Spawn 117, who asks, what did you think of the X-Men Evolution cartoon? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It did the high school thing, and a lot of people are like, oh god, they're doing a high school anime with X-Men, which is kind of funny because like 90% of the cast was the English voice dub cast for Inuyasha, so it's hilarious when you look back on it. You had Scott McNeil, who did the voice of Koga, is now Wolverine. You had David Kane as the voice of several characters, and he was the voice cast for Shomaru. You had Quicksilver, the voice of Inuyasha, voiced by Richard Cox. The entire English dub cast of Inuyasha was in X-Men Evolution. And it's hilarious, it was like a high school anime, and I couldn't get that out. Rewatching episodes of X-Men Evolution, I was like, holy shit! This is hysterical! I really hope there's, I know they're probably out there, but I hope I find them one day of an X-Men Evolution and Inuyasha crossover where it addresses, they all sound familiar, just in a passing, Wolverine and Koga pass by each other and just you sound familiar, bub. Yeah, I get that a lot. Or Shishomaru walks past Professor Xavier and he's just something familiar about you. I don't know. So, answer your question, yeah, I liked it. Second question, what would happen if Wolverine, Captain America, and Alucard, Walter all met one day and just talked about old times? What happened? What happens? Oh, they would just talk about, the old days of the war and how we sieged Omaha Beast. That's what we called it, not Omaha Beach, Omaha Beast. About 11 years ago. We had to call it 11 because the damn Kaiser took the word 11. I'm talking now as Grandpa now. From The Simpsons. I don't know where I was going with that joke, honestly. Anyway, what is your favorite X-Men? Again, I've already answered this one, so thank you for those questions, Spawn117. Moving on now to Matthew Bennett, who asks, Do you think Godzilla could join the X-Men because in most continuities he is a mutant? Yeah, giant radioactive mutant dinosaur. I don't think they... Well, they did have to... In the X-Men First Class comics, there was a short time where Jean Grey adopted Dragon Man as her pet, but then again, that didn't go so well. Then they have Krakoa, like a version of Krakoa in Wolverine the X-Men. Chalk it down to a maybe. Second question. If the X-Men were dealt with the task of dealing with a Godzilla attack, what do you think they would do? Probably dealing with a lot of damage. I mean, I can imagine Godzilla just one-hitting Wolverine and boom, dead. I'm pretty sure his radioactive breath could melt. Actually, I don't know if he could, like, his radioactive breath could melt his adamantium. Who knows? So, third question. What the fuck was up with Baraka Pool? Just why? Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it off with a just why. So, think of those questions, Matt Bennett. Moving on now to Burnouter7, who asks, Garnet versus Juggernaut, who wins? I don't know, because Juggernaut's taken on the likes of Thor and the Hulk and the Thing. Garnet's taken on some big opponents. Shit, I don't know. Second question: what X-Men villains would work as villains for the Crystal Gems? I'm gonna have to go with Apocalypse. Third question: do you think that the whole fear of mutants is getting a little old? I think they're kind of calming down the whole fear of mutants thing recently in the comics. So yeah, it's gotten old. Anyway, Burnouter. Thank you for those questions, Burnouter. Moving on now to Darth Venom, who asks, how did you feel about Cyclops killing Professor X during the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline? It sucked, but on the other hand, everyone's like, oh, Scott, it's your fault. And it was like, yeah, but he was under the influence of the Phoenix, which Iron Man split into pieces, and it shows 5 different people. Furthermore, when Jean Grey blew up a planet and wiped out several planets when she was Dark Phoenix, nobody blamed her. But when Scott did it to a mentor that he felt awful, may I mention, he felt awful about killing, yeah, no one said anything about it. So, it was shitty on both ends. Anyway. Second question: would you have liked the X-Men to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or do you think they're fine? They're fine on their own at this point, with Singer in charge and all that. Hopefully it will stay like this. And do you think Wolverine is overexposed? Little bit. It used to be, like, gigantic during the months following up to Wolverine, to Wolverine Origins, but now it's calmed down, thankfully. Alright, moving on now to Blue Electro 52, who asks, hey Deadpoolzilla, 2 questions. First is, what are your thoughts on Marvel basically trying to get rid of mutants after Secret Wars? I hate, I don't know, because I've heard a lot of back and forth things from, the fate of the X-Men during Secret War, after the events of Secret Wars. I've heard that, nothing's going to change, they're just going to be fine, and other times I've heard that the X-Men are going to be moved to a different planet after the events of Secret Wars. So, I don't know, guys. I really don't know. I mean, I'm going to be pissed because then it's really like a middle finger to what Fox is doing, and it just seems kind of petty. Alright. Moving on now to your second question, which is, which of these 3 gave the X-Men the most difficulty during battle? Apocalypse, Phoenix Force, or the Future Sentinels? Phoenix Force. That thing blew up planets. Anyway, thank you for those questions, Blue Electro. Moving on now to Shockwave Spider, who asks, which heroes from video games and cartoons and other comics, such as Danny Phantom, Rex, Randy Cunningham, Super Dinosaur, and Derek Dynamo in the Sonic the Hedgehog and Tails, make badass members of X-Men? Since he's close to being a mutant, Rex. Second question: if you could date any female X-Men member and possibly have one as your girlfriend, who would it be and why? Kitty. Third question: if you got turned into a mutant, what powers would you have, and would you want to join the X-Men? I'd have power to super speed or teleportation. They got enough of those on